Hello and welcome to The Download from Wise Woman and Wordsmith, where insight meets inspiration. A space for creatives, dreamers and visionaries ready to spark new ideas, ignite purpose and reimagine possibilities. Here we share downloads of wisdom, stories and strategies to help you thrive in your creative journey. I'm your host, Jill Marshall. Tune in, connect and let the magic unfold.
Show you tomorrow.
Welcome back to The Download, the space where intuitive insight meets creative expression, and where whispers from within can become the call to action we never expected. I'm Jill Marshall, and today we're going into a slightly darker place, a deeper place. Not dark in the sense of danger or despair, but dark in the way the earth is dark when a seed is planted, in the way the sky turns dark before a storm clears the air. Today's episode is called The Shadow Knows, when downloads reveal what we've hidden. Because sometimes what comes through us in a moment of inspiration isn't a glittering vision or a luminous idea. It's something uncomfortable, confrontational perhaps, but also, and you know it deep down, it's true, or at least it's true for you. You may have heard the phrase, what you resist persists. Sometimes these downloads we receive, those unexpected insights, moments of knowing, or creative urges, don't come to show us what we want. They come to show us what we've actually hidden. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've rejected, disowned, buried, not because they're bad, but because we've been told they're unacceptable. Weakness, anger, grief, vulnerability, even sometimes our power, if it's been shamed or we've been told that we're not worthy of it. But the shadow doesn't then disappear. It waits, it whispers, and eventually it finds a way to break through, often in a download that will not be denied. Carl Jung's own journey with the shadow is legendary. After his break from Freud, Jung began a series of inner explorations that became known as the Red Book. It was his attempt to write down and make sense of the voices, the visions, and the figures that came to him, often uninvited, often uncomfortable. These were not pleasant dreams. They were messages, archetypal energies, deep truths arising from the unconscious. Philemon, the winged old man who appeared in his visions, was no symbol of light. He was a guide of the unconscious, a being of deep knowing. Jung resisted him at first, thought he was losing his mind. But in the end, Jung listened, and the world of modern psychology was born. So maybe you've had one of these too, a download that felt less like a gift and more like a challenge. Maybe it came in the form of a memory, a gut feeling, a sudden realizing, a demand for healing, a burst of clarity that made you realize, I can't keep doing this. If so, don't run from it. These moments, these downloads from the shadow, come to bring us home to ourselves. The shadow, in Jung's case, wasn't something to avoid. It was something to dialogue with, to befriend, to integrate. And in doing so, Jung discovered something profound. The more we resist the shadow, the more power it has. But when we invite it in, it becomes part of our wholeness. And the downloads that once felt threatening become initiations. And if you want to see an example of this, go and watch the film Thunderbolts. It's very shadowy. Also bear in mind that the shadow is often, though not always, formed at a very early age or can even be inherited. You might not be aware for many years or even decades that this shadow exists within you. But it will make itself known eventually in various ways. Yes, shadow downloads can come in many forms. Dreams which may feature snakes or spiders, a moment in the mirror where you thought you saw something, or your face appeared changed. I know people who can even see the mask that sits over the face of complete strangers walking down the street. Sometimes it's less dramatic, just a meeting with someone who really irritates you, triggers you, to coin a common term, only to find out that what bothers you about them is a quality you really don't like in yourself. And occasionally, It's very dramatic indeed. A tower moment in tarot. A time when your life falls unexpectedly and completely apart. But here's something to remember. If you'd taken notice of, or even believed, those previous shadow downloads, you might have avoided that terrible moment. The shadow continues to poke the bear, and the bear is you, until it's recognized and integrated. And this relates to a very famous quote from Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. I'm just going to say that again, and maybe pause this episode for a moment while you think about times in your life that felt like luck, good or bad, or destiny, again, good or bad, and whether they were, in fact, maybe the final lesson in a lifetime of mini lessons that you'd ignored the same way you ignored your most hated teacher at school and believed it not to be important. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Is the penny dropping? I've had this happen myself, of course, many, many times, and yes, I've mostly ignored them until I reach a crisis point, that tower moment, when I literally find myself saying aloud those words I've already mentioned. I can't do this anymore. There's a moment where it's never again. Those words have applied in my jobs, in relationships, in physical challenges, in friendships, in all areas of my life. I've talked in other episodes about the very Jungian dreams I've had, and even the cast of archetypes that shows up around me, but it's often these less dramatic moments where a series of shadow events has tried to nudge me in the right direction, until the shadow gives up being subtle and knocks me flat. And then I get it. It feels like being prized open. But that crack, well, as Leonard Cohen said, that's how the light gets in. So what about some famous shadow downloads? Martin Luther King, as we all know, had a dream, and that dream changed history. J.K. Rowling, yes, I know I do go on her about her a lot, but I am a children's author, so she's a big case study for me, who said that the Dementors came to her in the depths of depression, not as monsters from outside, but reflections of what was already within, a shadow download that actually became a healing metaphor, not just for her, but for millions of readers. In science, Barbara McClintock saw in sudden clarity that genes could jump, move around, the genome. But this idea was rejected. It was considered too chaotic, too feminine, too intuitive. Now, I've talked about the silencing and rejection of women's power in another episode too. Her download was a truth science wasn't ready to accept until decades later when it finally had to. So, how do you know when a download is a shadow whisper, not just a sparkly idea? How do you know when it's not the trickster? Particularly, how do you know that it's a shadow calling that you should answer before it multiplies and overtakes you, before it directs your life and you call it fate? Here are a few signs. It unsettles you. You feel discomfort or even resistance. It keeps returning like a song stuck in your head. It won't go away. Sometimes it points inward. It's not just about the world. It's not just about those people you're meeting. It's about you. It feels like truth. You know it, even if you don't like it. And what can you do with a download like that? Well, there are many ways through it, but one way is to journal it out. Write freely, especially at night or first thing in the morning when your conscious is less conscious. Practice active imagination, as Jung did. Let the image or insight speak back to you, dialogue with it. Ask, why are you here? What are you showing me? Or turn it into art. Let it move through your hands. Paint, write, sculpt, speak. Or sit with it. Just sit with it. Not everything needs to be solved, and it certainly doesn't need to be solved instantly. Some truths need space. If it feels overwhelming, always get support from a coach, a therapist, a wise friend. Shadow work is sacred work.
But it doesn't have to be solitary.
It is, however, essential as part of our journeys from darkness to integration. Again, in Jung's own words, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. the downloads that shine the most light are often the ones that come from deepest within. If you've received something lately that disturbed your peace, that cracked your composure, maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was the shadow, finally ready to come home. That's it for today's episode of The Download. If this episode resonated with you or stirred something, you might want to revisit our previous episodes on divine timing, flow states, archetypes, the power of women, and how downloads come through us, not just to us. I also have a worksheet for you to download if you find that helpful. Check out the show notes for all of those. And I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever received a download that confronted you with your own shadow? What did you do with it? Mention it in the comments, or you can message me on thedownloadconnection@gmail.com. Until next time, honour the whispers, welcome the shadows, and remember, the download doesn't just show you the path, it shows you yourself. Thanks for tuning in to the Download podcast. Feel free to like, comment, and share, and all of that good stuff. And for more about my books, coaching, and business services, please check out wisewomanandwordsmith.com.